Hello, thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode for ScotWeek. And I'm Kelsey, Deanne, the Vice President of ScotWeek. And
hi, I'm Cindi McIntosh, and we are so happy you could join us today because we truly have one of the most exciting guests on today. We have Ross King with us, and we're so excited to have you, Ross.
Thank you. I thought there was going to be somebody else when you said, I've got the most exciting guest. I thought, who's coming on? I was like, someone else.
Well, I think you and I met first, I think when I played pipes in front of the King's Head, oh goodness, 20 years ago, maybe now, is when I first met you. It's been quite a while, and I was new.
We were all new. We were all new, Cindi. All new. Shiny and new.
And it's just been such a pleasure, to see you with the British American Business Council and Brit Week and see you around town. And I always know when you turn up, the party's going to start. We're going to have a real party. So.
Well, thank you. That's a lovely thing. But it's so lovely whenever I see you and your beautiful face there and your beautiful bagpipe playing as well. So it's been such a part of my life out here. And obviously, with any Scot, and I think no matter which Scot you speak to, the minute you hear the pipes, there's something that gets you. It's really funny. And I'd love to know from other people who are not Scottish at all if it affects them. I don't think it will do, but there is something, and I don't even know if it's just because you're away from home. I mean, I remember as a kid going to the Edinburgh Tattoo, and actually as a kid, the first thing I ever wanted to be was the Lone Piper. And for those people who don't know, the Edinburgh Tattoo, which is this wonderful military tattoo that is on the esplanade at at Edinburgh Castle. So it's the most amazing spectacle, and you have absolutely everything. You've got marching bands, you have military bands, you have gymnastics. I mean, everything. They put everything in there. But at the end of the tattoo, so you've got thousands of people on the esplanade, on the I suppose they call it the skirt of the castle. And then at the end, there's a piper called the Lone Piper who plays up with one of the little battlements on the castle, and he plays the final lament. And as the lights go down, it gets darker and darker and darker until he finishes or she finishes, and then the lights go out, and that's the end of it. And it was so funny. Maybe it was my love of the theatre that I remember saying to my mom and dad as a kid, I want to do that. I want to be the Lone Piper. So never ever got to do it. My best friend Kenny from school was a great piper, and every day after school I'd go round to his house and I would play the side drum and he would pipe. So that was as close as I ever got.
Wow, what's Kenny's last name? I wonder if
Kenny Mackenzie's his name, and he's a great piper. He's piped all over the world. When we met, he then went into the local pipe bands, and then they became the world champions. And then, the Cowell Games, which is a big event that Scots will know in Dunoon. So he's played at all these places. So it's great that I've can vicariously live my piping life through him, even though I only got as far as the chanter, which obviously you'll know all about the chanter. So.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I didn't know that you had that aspiration. If you ever see me and you want to try my pipes, I think you should.
Well, thank you. There's an invitation and a half.
I will do that. So we wanted to really just talk about you, and thank you so much for your wonderful words. We wanted to talk about, you have had such a career. You're an award-winning stage, screen, radio performer, broadcast person, and I want to find out how you came to get into all of these things, but most importantly, where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up in Glasgow in Scotland. I initially lived in a little place called Scotstoun, and then I moved to a place called Knightswood. So anytime I ever do any press stuff, they always go from Knightswood to Hollywood. And I grew up just in a council house, so kind of in the projects. Always loved the business of show. As a kid, would sing and dance. I was the annoying little kid that they would wheel out at weddings, and I'd sing Long-Haired Lover from Liverpool and all the madness like that. But I was basically going to be a footballer, and that was my whole thing. And my team in Scotland, so you've got Rangers, you've got Celtic, and then you've got this little team in the middle called Partick Thistle. or as Billy Connolly always called them, Partick Thistle nil, because it was always, you know, Rangers 3, Partick Thistle nil, Celtic 4, Partick Thistle nil. But they were my club, and I went to them as a schoolboy, and it looked like I was going to go to them professionally. But when I was about 15, I realized that I did love the whole show business thing. And I said to mom and dad, you know, I think I'd really like to go into show business. And they said, well, we don't know Coco the Clown, so we have no links whatsoever. So it was kind of like, oh, okay. And then, amazingly enough, a wonderful man called Roddy Hood, who was my math teacher. And by that time, I was doing the school discos. So I was DJing at the school discos and still doing my singing and acting and silly things like that and being in a couple of bands. And Roddy said, oh, hospital radio is a good way to get into TV and radio. And so I went there when I was 15, 16, and amazingly enough, got a show almost right away, Ross King's Disco Delights. I had my own little jingle that went, zoom, you're listening to Ross King Disco Delights. And so that was my kind of first break into radio. And then Radio Clyde, which is a big radio station in Scotland, they were looking for a kid on a Saturday who was called the Saturday Boy. And you got paid £10 and you did everything. You became the studio factotum, and you made the teas, the coffees, you ran in with the scripts, you rigged the soccer grounds, you did absolutely everything. And occasionally you would get on there. So that was my first real break. And I was so lucky that I then got a job full time with Radio Clyde. And also I was thinking about going to drama school. I was going to go to the Royal Academy in Scotland. And that was, well, hopefully that was the idea. And then people would say, look, you know, you're already got into this radio stuff and maybe you should just carry on and you'll get experience from that and you'll get put into things. And that's what was actually happening. I was so lucky that I was this kid who was kind of young and long blonde hair, and a lot of the DJs were getting older and fatter and balder, and so they kind of were like, put the kid on. So that was it. And I remember a thing. There was Alan Cumming. Whatever happened to Alan Cumming? Where did his career go? And he was sort of saying, you know, just go off and do this stuff. And Craig Ferguson, and we were all working together at the same time. So it was an amazing time in Scotland, and all the pop bands that were coming through, and we were all part of it. So it was a really, really exciting time. So that was it. That was my main break, and then went into TV very soon afterwards. I did my own little TV show in Scotland and the BBC. I think I was probably, I don't know, 18, 19, something like that. And then fortunately got into network TV, and then the rest is my own little history. So lucky, so fortunate.
Wow. Your career is so impressive, standing from being a radio DJ to dealing with hard news topics. It's incredible. But what was and I know a lot of times people in their careers, and I don't know if this applies to you, but there's little baby steps to get you to where you're going. But was there a series of baby steps or that tipping point, a catalyst that got you from Scotland to Los Angeles?
No, I think I was really lucky. And, you know, again, you'll hear me use the word lucky so often, and I really do mean it. But I also think that I was so fortunate to come through at a time when you could try so many different things, and no one was, you know, you weren't stereotyped into something. You know, you could act, sing, I wouldn't say dance, but move, you know, then do hard news, and then do, you know, DJ and do road shows and do stand up. And it was all encouraged then, rather than you need to do this, this needs to be in your wheelhouse, and this is what you are. And again, when I was a kid in local radio, there was a great guy called Jack McLaughlin. And I remember, obviously, I just wanted to be the DJ. I wanted to be the top 40 DJ and do the road shows and have the screaming girls and all that stuff, and, you know, be the hip guy. And when I was 16, I got offered, I did a through the night show. That was my first show, 2 a.m. till 6 a.m. And then I remember the art show coming up, and I was thinking, I don't want to do that. And Jack would say, no, you want to be a broadcaster. That's what you want to be. As the name suggests, be a broadcaster. You don't want to be a narrowcaster. And so I then did the art show, but I was thinking, I'm not interested in opera or things like that. But it taught you so many different skills. And then working in the newsroom taught me different skills as well. So that's one thing. And I still, to this day, every time I get an opportunity to do something a little bit different, I will do it, because I think it was Johnny Carson who once said that whatever you learn, you will use at some point. You know, and even if you're out doing something and someone says, you know, we want you to do a piece to camera, a stand up, you know, it's, can anyone ride a unicycle? And you think, oh, I remember that time when I was in St. Andrews and one of the circus people taught me to get on a unicycle. You know, it's the weird things that you never ever think you'll ever use. And suddenly, oh, that comes in handy. And again, all the skills that you learn all cross over. You know, the one thing I always think, I was lucky enough to do the holiday show for the BBC many years ago. And there's this bit, they always want you to walk down the street and then you look in a shop window and then you walk on. And it's quite funny that some presenters they'll like do the bit, they'll walk along and then they'll go, oh. Whereas when you've been taught in acting, you know, you just walk along and then you kind of glance at the shop and then you walk on. So it's funny, all the different things that completely cross over. So again, you know, that broadcaster thing was drilled into me as a kid. And then, you know, now, you know, I've had meetings at times with big bosses and they say, you know, it's kind of strange that we've got someone on our team at Good Morning Britain and Lorraine's show that, and also when I was here at KTLA in Los Angeles, where you can go out and report on, you know, some terrible, horrific events, but then you can go on stage with Donny Osmond in Las Vegas and sing. So it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing to do, and it's a weird set of, I wouldn't say skills, but a weird set of tools to have.
That's amazing. Well, you know, you never do know when everything's going to come in handy, right? You just. So I want to ask you a question. We have a mutual friend who kind of put this plug in our ear about asking you this question.
Oh, yes.
What is the most frightening thing you've had to do professionally?
Wow. Most frightening thing. I think, yeah, oh, actually, I know exactly. The most frightening thing was a few years ago, and I was at the Laugh Factory doing some interviews there with the wonderful owner there. And he's such a great guy. And in the middle of the interview, he used to watch me on KTLA, and he was very complimentary, very beyond complimentary. He didn't need to be. But he said to me, I challenge you. He said, I challenge you today. I challenge you. You do stand up here at the Laugh Factory Friday nights. And I was like, well, you know, I've been lucky that I've hosted lots of events, but I've never, ever particularly done stand-up or done, you know, like 15 minutes. I've always been used to, you know, you've been at many of the events that we've all been together, you know, and then you introduce someone or you can do a couple of quick gags and then go, and now to sing something. So it was this weird thing where it was like, okay, I've got 15 minutes to come up with an act. And I remember agreeing to it and doing it. And on the night, a Friday night, and Dane Cook was headlining. And I just remember standing at this side and my chest, I mean, my heart was going, ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. And I kept thinking, why am I doing this? I'm putting myself through this for no reason other than I've been challenged to do it. But then again, I thought, you know, I'd come in the other day and I'd seen people sitting on the sidewalk waiting to get into the open mic spot and to do, you know, a couple of minutes. And I thought, here I'm being handed a Friday night, 2 shows at the world famous Laugh Factory. Oh my goodness me, you know, why shouldn't I do it? So yeah, I think that was one of the most frightening things. And the other most frightening thing, which has just come to me now, was again doing the holiday program for the BBC. And it was the year the Olympics were going to be in Barcelona. And they said to me, we want you to film a piece about the Olympics coming up. So we got there, got to Barcelona, and they said the first bit we're going to do is at the Olympic pool outside, beautiful, the big diving boards and all the rest of it. And they said, so what we want is we want you to do your piece to camera. We're just going to do a quick high. We won't see that you're on the diving board. And I was like, oh yeah. And then we're going to pull out, and then you dive into the pool, and then swim to the other end, and then finish your piece. And I was like, I've never dived into a pool in my life. We've got your resume here, you're kind of action man and all that. I was like, yeah, I don't think it says dive from an Olympic diving board into in an Olympic pool and swim the whole length and all the rest of it. And then it's that weird thing where you kind of get into this weird mode of you think, I'm doing a TV show, everything will be fine, I'll be all right. And so I did actually dive. I mean, I think it was probably the worst dive that anyone's ever witnessed, and it did hurt because I just never dived. I just thought it's, you know, a bit like I've seen it on TV. So I think you do this, and I think you tuck and blah blah blah, and that was it. So that was another moment when I was really scared.
You could have been injured.
I could have been, exactly. But because you think the TV cameras are here, they're rolling, everything's going to be fine, I'll be okay. So I had a sore stomach for days.
Well, maybe on a somewhat tangential note about, taking a leap. Tell us about playing Frankenfurter in the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Well, that was another big frightening moment. I got this call from my agent to say, look, they're interested in you going into the Rocky Horror Show. There's a guy in there at the moment playing Frankenfurter, Jason Donovan, who some people watching will know. Brilliant actor, great singer, was in the soap opera Neighbours, then became one of the biggest pop stars all over Britain and Europe and Australia, and a lovely guy and an old pal. And I was like, oh my, I've got to follow him, which is going to be hard. But then also to get into this show. And if people haven't seen the Rocky Horror Show live, the audience are such a huge part of it. And they shout things out, but also they heckle you. It's like doing stand-up and being heckled after every single line. But the problem is, because you're a Frankenfurter, you've got to take control. So if they heckle you and you don't batter them back, then the audience starts to go, whoa, and then they're really after you and they think we can put them off and things like that. So the first night, you know, I'm trying to remember my lines. I'm trying to remember the dance routines. I'm trying to remember the songs. I'm trying to remember everything. And you've still got people shouting things at you as you're going along. And then you're trying to hit them back with a heckler line. So that probably was right up there again with the terrifying moments. But it was great fun. And again, to get a chance to play that role and, you know, following the people that have. In fact, I've got up behind me the Rocky Horror Show from Tim Curry, who was the original Frankenfurter and in the movie too. Amazing. And I've got it up here, and it says, "To Ross with love, don't dream it, be it," which is just one of my favorite things.
Amazing quote. Love it. Mm-hmm.
You know, here, listening to you describe it, it kind of is reminiscent of watching Parliament.
Perfect description. Perfect. And more theatrics in there. What is it they always say? Politics is show business for ugly people.
Oh,
so maybe I should have gone into politics.
You would be a diamond in the rough.
Very well received. So you, not too long, well, I guess it's been a few years now, you received, you're highly awarded anyway, but you received a very high honor from the Queen of England. You received the OBE.
Yeah, well, it was an MBE I got, but yeah, I was very, very lucky. I mean, it's something that I never, ever expected. You know, my mom and dad were incredible workers throughout their whole life for so many different charities. And I always thought that, I remember when the New Year's Honours list of the Queen's, the birthday list would come out, and I'd always go, Dad, Mom, your name's not on here. And my dad always said, son, we don't get things like that. That's not for us. And so I never, ever gave it a thought. And then when I got the call and I got the letter to say, you know, Her Majesty would like to bestow upon you an MBE for charity, broadcasting, and for the arts, I was just like, well, this really it's come to the wrong address. This is definitely not for me. But when I got to accept it, you know, I did accept it really from my mom and dad as well, because, you know, they were so deserving of something like that. So it was just the most wonderful day. And I was very fortunate that I went to Holyrood Palace in Scotland, in Edinburgh, which is her official palace there, and to get the Queen herself, because, you know, you never know who is going to present you with your medal. So to get her, but also what was really nice was that they say to you, she may speak to you, she may not, and then when you go forward, she just pins your medal on you. But if she does chat to you, and then when she lifts her hand, that's the end of the conversation. She will shake your hand, and if you don't move back, she will slightly push you back, and off you go. And so that's the end of it. And what I wanted to do was, the minute I saw her hand come up, I wanted to say thank you to her because, you know, whether you're a royalist or anti-royals or whatever, I don't think anyone can disagree. She's been the most incredible woman. Yes. And, you know, she's my queen. You know, she's been there my whole life, my whole career. And so, you know, two things. One was obviously when I met her, you know, I'd only seen her on a stamp, so I didn't know whether to shake a hand or lick the side of her face. So that happened. And but then I wanted, when our hand came up, I said, Mom, may I just say thank you to you, you know, for all that you've done for our country, and you've been the most incredible monarch. So it was nice that I got just to say a little thank you, because I know my mom and dad would have wanted that as well. So yeah, it was a really, really special moment.
Oh, lovely, very lovely.
So, given the breadth of your career, what would be the moment you would like to have the most in terms of, is it entertainment or hard news or something completely different that we haven't even talked about yet?
Oh, that I've had or that I'd like to have?
That you would like to have.
That I'd like to have. You know, again, I'm just so lucky to have done so many different things. And, you know, I think of covering the Oscars or covering, you know, a lot of big news stories. And just a couple of weeks ago, very sad that I had to go and cover George Floyd's funeral in Houston. So, you know, to be involved with so many different things and in so many different ways, I do feel very fortunate, and, you know, a huge deal of gratitude to the people that have helped me and helped me get there. You know, the way I look at things at the moment, I was saying something the other day that for me, everything is gravy now. That's the lucky part. And as I said to them as well, I'm also that point in my life where I'm so fortunate that from a financial point of view, I've got enough money for the rest of my life if I die next Tuesday. So if I keep that in mind, then I'm okay. So yeah, I mean, I think of everything now it's just gravy. And if there's other things come along, it's brilliant. But I'm so lucky, you know, again, even when we are having this chat, you know, I think that I got to perform at the London Palladium and my mum and dad were there. And then even from a footballing point of view, I got to play for Scotland at Wembley Stadium. And my dad got to see that, you know, so all the not little things, I mean, huge things to me, but things along the way that I never would ever have dreamt of once as a kid have actually happened to me. And then to live here, you know, look out my window and see the Hollywood sign every day, and I've covered the Oscars and the Grammys and the Emmys and the Tonys and all these things, and to have performed in different stages, and to have worked at KTLA here for 6 years, and to work in Good Morning Britain and work with my friend Lorraine Kelly. Yeah, I mean, it's all ridiculous. It really is ridiculous. And it's funny having moments like this to reflect on it as well. You go, wow, lucky boy.
Nice. Yes, I know that you are one of the most super positive people that we ever, you know, even get to have a brief chat with. Oh. And it makes it so exciting to have you here and be interviewing you a little bit, or at least trying. And
it's a great job.
Thank you. You are so super positive, and I think that we need more of this, you know, in spite and despite of what goes on in the world right now and the complications of this year. Just having that super positive outlook and getting up every day with that positive outlook of, you know, and being excited about life. And so we like to share, you know, especially during these times with people, what do you do to try to keep yourself in that space of positivity and getting up in the morning and just really just, you know, moving on and getting on with it and looking to the future?
I think actually what you've just really paraphrased it there, Cindi, which is that, I mean, I am very much always the glass is half full. And part of that is because what's the alternative? I don't think the alternative's any good. So that's why I am that way. But I think, as you just said there, I think if you get up in the morning, especially with all that's going on in the world at the moment, if you get up in the morning and you feel reasonably healthy, that's a great start to the day. And then everything is just one foot in front of the other. And again, it sounds like an old cliche, but you have to do that. And I said to someone the other day, my little tip in life is always keep moving forward. I mean, it's lovely when I reminisce And I think of things that I've been lucky enough to have done, but I don't really think about it too much. I'm always thinking forward. I'm always moving forward. What's the next venture? What can I do that can be better? How can I do something that I do better? Just keep on moving forward. And I think also if you take one day at a time, and I think it's never been more relevant than it is now, that because we don't know, I mean, it's like today, are there changes? Are there different guidelines now? Are we peaking? Are we not peaking? Are we going to go into another lockdown? Are we going to go into another safer at home? No one really knows what's going to happen. And I think that's probably a great thing at the moment, that people have realized that you do have to take one day at a time, and, make the most of that day, and then get through that day. And at the end of it, if it's gone okay or whatever, reflect on it and go, but just reflect on it briefly, because that hopefully there will be another one tomorrow. And also, again, it sounds like the old joke, treat each day as if it were your last, because one day you will be right. But there is such a lot more behind that. I think that's what you have to do. It's enjoy every single day. I take mental pictures all the time whenever I'm filming or I'm doing something, even with that Laugh Factory. I remember taking a mental picture backstage, thinking I'm on Sunset Boulevard, Laugh Factory, took a mental picture, looking at the board of the names who was going to go out and perform. So I have all them up here, and I can, go back to that little library at times. But again, the whole idea is always move forward. Just keep on thinking what the next thing is.
Absolutely. And that's just so beautiful. And I think people really need to embody that. Absolutely. And I just want to dig a little bit deeper into that too. I mean, especially, we're in Hollywood, and Hollywood can either be amazing and you can find your tribe and your wolf pack and you can do amazing things, or there can be some social pariahs that you have to kind of put up boundaries and say, nope, this is what I'm about. And if you're not about that, then let's not work together. So I just wanted to know, what keeps you grounded and what helps you to maintain really healthy boundaries and balance in your life and your profession?
Oh. Well, the grounded thing was always mom and dad. And a couple of classic stories of my mom and dad, and they're true stories. The first one was when I was a kid, local radio, and we had Live Aid, and then we had Sport Aid, and I was hosting the Sport Aid event in Glasgow. There was about 10,000 people at the Scottish Exhibition and Conference Centre. And I'm on stage and I'm introducing all these pop stars and showbiz stars. And I'm also playing the music and the place is bouncing. And I suddenly thought, I knew mum and dad were coming along. And I thought, well, somewhere in that crowd of 10,000 people, they're there. And they must be quite proud of me today. And amazingly enough, I introduced one big pop star and I moved to the side. And it was a crazy time, because you're a big fish in a little pond. And I had two kind of bodyguard minder guys. And one of them, I said, Cameron, Campbell, I'm going to move down to the front. I've got to go and see mum and dad. And he said, you can't. There's just screaming people, it'll get terrible. It'll get very ugly. And I said, no, I've got to get down there, my mum and dad, because I spotted them out of 10,000 people and they're moving down to the front. So anyway, I got probably, I don't know, maybe 20 feet from mum and dad. And, my mum and dad were you could put them on a charm bracelet. they got to pushed their way through, and I'm trying to get to them, and there's all these crash barriers. And I'm looking at mum and dad, and you can't hear anything, screaming and all the rest of it. And I look at my mum and dad, and I go like that, thinking, at least today they're going to be proud of me. And I went like that, and my mum looked at me and she went, "Speak slower." And that just summed it all up. And then also, and again, another true story, when I got asked to be on Celebrity Squares. So in America, it's Hollywood Squares, but in Britain, it was called Celebrity Squares. And I got this phone call and I was like, oh my goodness me. Because again, you're just like that kid who's been, watching the show on TV, and then you're plucked from your front room and dropped into this, the whole square with all these stars that you've just watched on TV. And I phoned my mom to tell her. And I said, I'm going to be on Celebrity Squares. And she went, oh, that's brilliant, son. Oh, I'm thrilled for you. That's wonderful. And I said, hey, who'd have thought it? And she went, no. She said, it's wonderful. She said, I hope you win the car. I'm not a contestant, Mum. I'm actually going to be one of the celebrities. So they were always like that. They were great at knocking me down. And my sister would do the same. So, and I think also when you come from a place like Glasgow, which is, it's one of the warmest, friendliest cities in the world. But equally, if you ever got above your station, you would be, knocked down right away, and which is not a bad thing at all. So yeah, I don't think there's ever any chance of anything ever getting out of control.
Well, that brings me to my next sort of question for you. And, I have a great love of Scotland, a family home there in the north still, and there every year for at least a month, hopefully this year soon. And I absolutely love it in Scotland. I love Scotland. I love the West Coast. I love Glasgow and Edinburgh. I also always love coming back to LA. I love landing back in Los Angeles. And of course, it's very sunny here and it's very kind of gray there. And it's kind of opposite weather-wise. So there's that. But how did you know, and when did you know that you had to leave Scotland? And did you think that you were leaving and moving sort of a little more permanently elsewhere at that point in time? Was it just an evolution over some years that happened?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, Cindi. I don't really ever feel that I've left Scotland, which is maybe sounds a little odd, but just because, my heart will always be there. So I don't feel that I've really left Scotland. And because I'm lucky that I go back, well, up until the recent events, I'd go back maybe 4 times a year. So it never felt that I was away from it that long. Again, I was lucky as a kid to then get into national television and to do theatre in the West End and things. So, I moved to London fairly early in my life, but of course would still go back and forth to Scotland. And then in about 1993, I think it was, I came out to LA for the very first time to cover the Oscars for the BBC. And I just landed here and I thought, I'm going to live here. I just knew it the minute I got here. I thought, I'm going to live here. And I had a couple of chances right then. And I thought, no, just a bit too early for me. And it was 2000, as we mentioned before, when I first met you. That was it. In 2000, it just seemed the right time. Here we are, the year 2000. What a perfect time to come to somewhere new. And it's been an amazing home to me. And America's been so great to me. And so it's one thing that I will never ever forget. But again, Scotland will always be home. Glasgow will always be home. And it's funny that, as I said, I don't really feel that I've ever left it. Again, there's the old silly things of you can take the boy out of Glasgow, but you can't take Glasgow out the boy and all those things. So yeah, no, it will always be home. I'll always think of it as home.
You're a true Ouija.
I'm a Ouija. That's it, exactly. Yeah. I'm a wee Ouija.
And even though I was born here, I very much feel that same way. I absolutely adore Scotland, which is why, in part, we started ScotWeek. We wanted to be helpful and charitable and really just spotlight Scotland, this beautiful, beautiful country that's really innovative and really coming into the future very nicely. And so that's one of the reasons, my heart is still there as well. And I'm so glad to hear you say that.
Oh, well done, ladies. Well done, you girls.
Well, I just decided to come along to help with Scotland because I like whiskey. So
Good girl, Kelsey. There we are.
Yeah.
Kelsey's here for the whiskey.
I'm just kidding. No, absolutely. I have Scottish ancestry. Absolutely adore it. And the other thing is, I think the last time that I saw you in person pre-COVID was actually at your Burns night party that you hosted. And Daniel B was our first person that we interviewed for our podcast. And he was so lovely and so
you were that nice. You were just setting the bar low, weren't you?
Exactly.
You've got to set the bar low for him. No, it's all. He's a brilliant guy. What a dear friend, and just an incredible networker as well. So he is the, any thoughts of PR, he is the man. He is the man.
He is the man. And he sang very, very high praises for you. He adores you. So
he's in PR. He lies.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and honestly, we would really love, anything you feel like you would like to, at least come to ScotWeek and participate. We would so love to have you and be so excited just to have your your involvement in some way, shape, or form. As I said, you're just such a positive person, and seeing you just, hey, we can get this party started, but that really just helps. And we're so grateful that you could be on with us today. And
no, it's all my absolute pleasure. Thank you. I think it's brilliant what you're doing. So yeah, no, I love it all. And again, it's great for the three of us to talk about a place that that we're not there, but we think about a lot. And it's a place that we love and adore. So yeah, no, it's lovely just to take this time to think about, our dear old place.
Absolutely. And Ross, is there anything else that you would like to share with us? Is there any upcoming events or life tidbits you want to share? Or
I'd like to share my credit card bill with you if you would like to make a contribution. That would be nice.
We can set up a GoFundMe for Ross King.
Please. No, this is getting interesting now. I'm liking the sound of this a lot. No, I just, as we're saying, especially at the moment, you take every day as it comes, and at the moment, I was lucky enough. I was just interviewing Catherine Zeta-Jones, a bit similar the way that we're doing this, except she's a lot more beautiful than I am and a lot more interesting. But she was talking about all you need is love, and love is all for everyone. And at the moment, they're very simple sentiments, but they really do apply. And I'd interviewed Dionne Warwick probably about 6 months ago, and it's hard to believe that that the beautiful song that she sang, "What the World Needs Now Is Love, Sweet Love," is 55 years old. Wow. And when you hear it, and without wishing to sound too simplistic about everything, and will love conquer all? Let's hope it does. But there is that thing, if you can just push that out into the world, just this fact that everyone, let's do our best. Let's get on. My mom used to always say to me, "Do your best, son. That's all you can do." And I always thought it was such a true sentiment. And I think I was older, probably 22, 23, before I realized exactly what she meant. Because you think we'll always do our best, but then do you really? Do you really do your best? And even if that means preparing properly, or, rather than just on the day, she used to say to me about football. And I was thinking, well, of course I'm going to go out and do my best. But then you think, well, what does it take to do your best? Have you trained properly? Have you eaten properly? Have you had enough rest, et cetera, et cetera? So I think that's such a big thing. And I think we all need to do a bit of self-reflection and go, what can we do to be better? And if we all do our best, then hopefully the world will see that and be a better place.
Absolutely. And if we put ourselves out there and we try to love and understand other people, and I think a lot of it too is about empathy, just being able to look at other people's lives and understand that it's different, and have that empathy for what they have to go through. So and then true. That understanding will be a good start to being able to love.
Yeah,
absolutely. True. Absolutely. Cool. Well, Ross, thank you so much. You are an absolute gem.
My pleasure. Thank you, ladies, for sharing the love.
Yes. We hope to see you again very soon. I hope that it's not all the way to, Christmas time that we get to be together, and hopefully we do get to be together.
Absolutely. I want to hear that skirl of the pipe soon.
Would be good. We'll be playing back in Scotland as well. And then we'll keep in touch with you.
Please, that would be great.
Thank you so much, and all the very best. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you very much indeed. That was so lovely. Thank you, Cindi.